two different camera types. Two systems I love: Nikon DSLR and OM system Micro Four Thirds. What's in my camera bag? Let's do a comparison. My name is Thomas Eisl. I'm a professional photographer from Vienna, Austria. And over the last few years, I almost exclusively worked with Nikon DSLRs. Recently, I got into Micro Four Thirds with the OM system OM1. And what I realized over the last couple of years, that I always bring some core items to get the shooting done. So when I bought into Micro Four Thirds, it was only reasonable for me to get equivalent lenses and camera bodies in the Micro Four Thirds world, so that I have a very comparable and familiar workflow when working with this new kit. In my camera bag are always two identical camera bodies. It's usually the Nikon D800 or the OM system OM1. I don't really like to have a different backup body in each of those kits, as the handling is then slightly different, and that can be an issue if you have to swap between the bodies really quickly. Then you can get stuff wrong. I don't really like that. The true workhorse lens in my Nikon kit is actually a pro level standard zoom lens, and that's this one right here, the AFS Nikkor 28-70 f2.8. It's a classic professional grade zoom lens for Nikon f-mount. In the Micro Four Thirds kit, it's the M Suico 12-40 f2.8 Pro. So this lens offers a little bit more reach, and it's also a little bit wider on the wide end, but essentially those lenses function the same and fulfill the same role, covering all focal lengths I usually need. For reportage photography and situations when there is not enough light, I usually mount a fast wide angle prime lens. And in the Nikon kit, one of my absolute favorite lenses fulfills this role. It's the Nikkor 28 f1.4e. When looking for a similar lens in the OM system world, I was first looking at the 70mm f1.2 Pro lens. That would be a 35mm equivalent lens with an equally fast aperture, but to be honest, 35mm is a little bit too narrow for my taste, so I decided to get a different lens, and that's the Panasonic Leica DG Samilux 15mm f1.7. This lens is a 30mm equivalent lens, so it's a little bit longer than the 28mm Nikkor. It's also a little bit slower with an aperture of only f1.7, but it is also very good when shot wide open, which is important when getting a fast lens. You really want a lens that performs good wide open if you intend to use this aperture in your everyday work. There are situations when 70 or 80mm is just not long enough, and where f2.8 again is too slow. And for these scenarios, I've got a fast telephoto lens, and I like my fast telephoto lenses, my fast telephoto prime lenses to be more precise. I like them a little bit longer. So I went for the AFS Nikkor 105mm f1.4e in the Nikon world. It's very fast. It's a classic Nikon focal length 105mm, and the images this lens produces are just outstanding. I'd even go as far as to say that this lens alone is reason enough to get a Nikon F-mount DSLR. It is really very special. In the Micro Four Thirds world, it was very obvious which lens I actually wanted to buy, because there is one equally legendary lens in this camera system, and that's the M Suico 75mm f1.8. Exceptionally well built, 150mm equivalents in 35mm terms, and very sharp wide open already, beautiful character, and it's just so compact. So this is actually a must-have Micro Four Thirds lens, I'd say. Comparing the capabilities of the Nikon kit with the capabilities of the OM system kit is actually quite difficult. Why? Because DSLRs and mirrorless cameras are fundamentally different camera types. Nonetheless, I'll attempt a comparison anyways, as I've used both kits under very similar circumstances over the last few weeks. As photographers, we obsess over image quality, so let's start with this. The Nikon D800 with its 36 megapixel sensor and set of high-performance Nikon lenses is able to deliver better one-shot technical image quality in good light scenarios. The lenses in the OM1 kit are also very, very good, and I think they are, in terms of equivalent imaging performance, as good as the Nikon lenses. However, the OM1 has a 20 megapixel sensor and is therefore at a little bit of a disadvantage. Interestingly, the OM1 also has a handheld high resolution feature that gives you a 50 megapixel image when hand holding the camera under good lighting scenarios and when shooting still subjects. This works actually quite well, and you can perfectly use it for portrait subjects. So things are not that easy to compare here. Taking a look at low light performance, the D800 kit again has the edge over the OM1 kit. And the reason for that is first that there are f1.4 lenses and here are f1.7 and f1.8 lenses. So there is an advantage, and also the 36 megapixel sensor of the Nikon D800, which is largely ISO invariant, is very good at retaining detail even in low light scenarios. Again, things are not that easy. The OM1 has a new stacked backside illuminated sensor with a brand new imaging pipeline, and I've been very impressed by how good Micro Four Thirds cameras perform under low light scenarios nowadays. The OM1 is truly revolutionary in that regard. So, working in scenarios that require ISO 12800 are perfectly doable with the OM1. Having said that, there is also this phenomenon called perceived image quality. And we all know this one situation where a smartphone photographer walks up to us and shows us an image on his screen and says, "Look at that, that's so much better than what I get out of a dedicated camera." And the reason for that is that smartphones usually process the images very well right away, so they look very good, although technically they are clearly inferior even to older digital cameras. And comparing these two kits, I kind of stumbled upon the same phenomenon. The Nikon D800 produces outstanding RAW files that can be developed in many different directions. However, the RAW output right away out of the camera is not very pleasing, at least to me. The OM1, on the other hand, builds on the tradition of Olympus image processing and I've always liked the Olympus colors a lot, and in the OM system OM1 this is not different. The default image output when using proprietary OM system software or in-camera RAW processing is just very pleasing. There is just the right amount of sharpening, noise reduction and contrast adjustment applied to every file. So I mostly take the images out of the camera just like they are and deliver them to the client with some skin retouching if necessary. So that's very impressive. This camera really gives you this smartphone feeling where you take the picture and you look at the back screen and you are like, wow, this is really, really good. And it actually is really, really good. To me, probably even more important than raw image quality is autofocus performance. And the Nikon D800 always got it right in the past. However, there is one limitation to a DSLR's autofocus system, and that is that the autofocus points are more or less placed in the center of the frame. The OM1 on the other hand has an equally capable autofocus system that offers a lot of different options on top of that. But most importantly, its AF points cover the whole image frame. So focusing and recomposing, which I find myself doing quite often when using the Nikon D800, are a thing of the past when using a mirrorless camera. And that can also help in the image quality department, as post-production cropping is far less needed when using the OM1. At least that was my experience. So in cropping a 36 megapixel image down to 20 megapixel, well, then we are again in OM1 territory in terms of resolution. Additionally, it is worth mentioning that with the OM1 I can use contrast detection and face detection autofocus without changing to the live view mode like I have to on my D800. So that's another small bonus. Another important factor in photography for me is rendering. And a larger sensor camera like the Nikon D800 just gives me a little bit more flexibility in terms of achievable looks. So I can use one of the Nikon lenses wide open and get very shallow depth of field, but I can also stop these lenses down to get a look very similar to what my Micro Four Thirds kit gives me. So there is a little bit more flexibility when shooting with the Nikon D800. Taking a look at the video performance of both systems, the OM1 outperforms the Nikon system. It has in-body image stabilization. It can autofocus during video reliably. And also the video output is more flexible than what the Nikon D800 gives me. Nonetheless, the Nikon D800 also always got the video jobs done as long as I shot this camera from a stabilized platform. Taking even one step back and looking at overall versatility, well, the OM1 is very good in terms of computational photography. There are a lot of different features in there that really make sense. And the Nikon D800 on the other hand is a very classic stills-oriented picture-taking machine. So, two worlds again, both of them are very good cameras, to say the least. Size and weight are important factors, and it comes to no surprise that the OM kit is quite a bit lighter and more compact than the Nikon kit. But how much? I put all the items on my trusty high precision coffee scale, and the result is that the Nikon kit weighs 5 kilograms while the OM kit weighs 2.3 kilograms only. That's a huge difference. Also, in terms of size, the difference is quite significant. The Nikon kit can barely fit inside my trusty Domke F2. However, things are very tight then because these lenses are really big. So I ended up bringing this thing over here, which is my studio trolley, to the shoots. So to fit all the stuff in there and to not have to carry it around all day. The OM kit, on the other hand, fits nicely into the Domke F2, and there is even some space for additional accessories in there. So in practice, this meant that one time when shooting a fashion show with the OM1 kit, I went straight to the backstage party after finishing the shoot, while on another fashion show with the Nikon D800, I packed all my stuff in the trolley and brought it back to the studio first, missing the party. So that's of course a tongue-in-cheek example, but you get the point that weight and size really make a difference. Purchase price is an important consideration when getting camera gear, at least for me. So I compared how much money it would cost to buy these kits at the moment, right now. And the Nikon D800 kit, although containing two high-end f1.4 prime lenses, would cost only around 4,000 euros in excellent condition. The OM1 kit, on the other hand, contains two very recent camera bodies that are rarely to be found on the used market. So the OM1 kit costs 5,800 euros at the moment. That's quite a big difference and underlines what I said in the past, that in terms of bang for the buck, there is nothing better than a DSLR kit at the moment. To conclude, both camera systems are excellent. The Nikon D800 paired with these high-end Nikon lenses, well, it's just a no-nonsense, no-compromise still photography machine. And it's a lot of camera. That's something I can appreciate, but it can also become a burden when having to carry this equipment around all day long. So for me, the Nikon D800 feels at home when working in the studio, when working with an assistant, or when being able to put the camera in a camera trolley during the shoot. The OM1, on the other hand, is quite different. It is a feature-packed, high-performance stills and video camera that offers a very smooth user experience in a very compact and lightweight body. So when traveling by train and plane, or in reportage-style shooting scenarios, the OM1 is just perfect. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel and following me on other social media. See you next time.